my Rector's report. And I just want to start. I wrote up my report, as I always do, and we'll get to it. It's basically, okay, we're working on this, and this has happened, and we're looking forward to this in the year ahead. But I wanted to start by just saying that I'm really proud of this church. Beth alluded to this. This has been a difficult year. Most of the difficulties haven't been so much inside of our church, but around us. I remember when I came to this area, one thing that I was told that, whatever else is happening in the world, DC is in its own little bubble, and its economy is always going to be great, and you can just always count on that. And that's been true until this year. And that has brought a bunch of different troubles with it for many of us. I know folks have gone without incomes. I know some folks have lost their jobs in our congregation. This is a new kind of stress for us. And I just want to flag that, that has been part of our life. And what I've seen is when there is stress on the outside, well, guess what? Stress comes inside too. And this is what I'm really proud of. In the midst of all of that, I've watched this congregation continue to be true to its values, to its desire to be hospitable to its neighbors, to care for each other, to keep the main thing the main thing. And that's really big to me, because you know what? There are so many people that have so many ideas about what the main thing is, right? But what I have seen at Epiphany is that we have kept the main thing, Jesus. I just love, it's so hard to beat John 3:16, friends, That's the main thing. God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have eternal life. And I've watched this church keep that the main thing. And I'm just so grateful to be part of that. It isn't always that way. As my parents like to say, churches are great except for all the people in them. And I'm glad that cynical statement doesn't feel like a true statement at Epiphany. Sorry for throwing my parents under the bus. They might be watching. Hi, Mom and Dad. Love you. But I am so grateful for this church and the way that we have kept ourselves, what I think of as grounded and centered there. And I just want to encourage us all to keep ourselves there in the year ahead. And I frankly also want to warn you, there will be all kinds of peoples and voices and even things in our life that will attempt to pull you away from that. But what we have here is really valuable. It is really valuable to do life with other people. It's really valuable to do Christianity with other people. Christianity is meant to be done in churches, friends. We need an individual faith in Jesus, yes. But a church is a non-negotiable part of being a Christian, and that does mean other people. Now, you guys are here, so I'm preaching to the choir, because people that come to annual meetings aren't the folks that are tempted to think differently about that, generally speaking. But it can be a tempting thought at times, because it is difficult to navigate relationships with other people. It can be tempting to say, well, I'll just go read my Bible by myself and do Christianity that way. And if that thought occurs to you, first of all, there's lots of parts of our culture that are going to try to have that thought occur to you. Secondly, just let me encourage you to resist it in the year ahead. We have a valuable thing at Epiphany, and we're doing Christianity together in a way that helps us all be better followers of Jesus. So that's the part I just kind of made up. Now I'll get to the part I actually wrote down, okay? So last year I began my annual report by outlining some things that I hoped we would work on in 2025. Now I do not expect you to remember that. I'll remind you some of the things I mentioned. I hoped that we would take a look at Epiphany's general health and ask how we might need to actually consider some changes for the future. I asked how we might do more to encourage evangelism and conversion at Epiphany. And I asked how we might invest in the discipleship of Epiphany's children in a new way. Those are three things that I outlined in the 2024 annual report. Now you might wonder, did anything come of that? I mean, lots of times people say stuff at meetings and it kind of goes down the memory hole, and nothing really ever happens. But of course, because it's in my annual report, that means, yes, something did happen, so we can talk about it. And I'm actually really glad of the various things we've done this year that have moved us down the road in those areas. Starting last year, our junior warden, Jeff Zimmerman, he convened and led a group we called the Church Health Team. And that group that was made up of Jeff and Aaron Soroka and Malu Tarabi and Linda Bassett and Ross Cummings and Margot Rash, they led us as we first took a survey. I actually like surveys when they're designed in ways that help you get information, put out by a group called Natural Church Development. So we took the survey, and then we said, okay, what does it say about us, and what should we do with the results? Now, first about that survey, I just want to thank many of you who took the 15 or 20 minutes to fill it out. I mean, everybody wants us to fill out a survey these days. I don't know if you've noticed that. So I do appreciate you taking the time to fill out ours. We needed something like 24 participants to have a statistically relevant result, and we had somewhere between 50 and 70. I don't remember how many participated exactly, but we had very high participation in that. And overall, the good news is the Natural Church Development Survey, it suggested that we're a generally happy and healthy church. Now, I'm not going to go detail on all of these things, but I will point out that average is the middle line, and we're mostly above average. Yay, us. Isn't that nice? Now, that's great, and it's always nice to know you're not doing a terrible job at things. But the way this process works, the way this Natural Church Development Survey, and then what they say to do after it with the church health team works, is they say, okay, okay, let me make sure all the buttons are plugged in. So what they say is, it's great to do well at things, but focus on the things you're not doing so well at, and look at ways to improve that. Now, one of the things that has been true about Epiphany for a long, long time is the thing we are least good at least as Natural Church Development looks at it, is evangelism. So that's our low bar right there. But there is some good news. We did the same survey in 2014, and we're less low than we were in 2014. So we're less least, as it were, at it. I'll talk more about evangelism later, but we did see some progress there. But before I get to evangelism, I do want to spend some time focusing on some of the other recommendations that came out of that church health team that Jeff convened, because they actually looked at all these results, and they said, yes, we know we struggle with evangelism. But then they said, let's look at the things that are next lowest. Let's look at the things that we could work on, that are next in line after that. And, if you look at that, one of those is empowering leadership, and the other is effective structures. We have a 54 and 55 on those. And they said, well, let's take a look at those things. And what that really meant was asking questions about how the clergy and staff do our work at Epiphany. And that begins with me. In short, they told me that I needed to delegate some things, and so I'd have more time for sermons, for pastoral responsibilities, and for congregational leadership. Now, I admit, this was hard for me to hear. I like doing the things I do. Maybe some of you can relate in your work how this is. But it also fit advice I had heard from other folks I had talked about where we were at Epiphany and asked them what they thought about our church. So I've made some changes in what I do, and that's involved some letting go on my part. Some of that is I let go of our weekly email newsletter, and I also let go of our bulletin. Other people do those things now. Patrina's handling the email newsletter, and Jimmy and Mother Pamela make sure the bulletin is correct. I'm grateful to both of them, but those are things that I let go of. So if you have questions about that, don't talk to me anymore. I have also asked Pamela to take over this big, sprawling area of stuff that I just call worship logistics. That means I am no longer the guy to talk to about microphones and mission minutes and exactly who is going to do what where on Sunday morning. And to be honest, I love not being that guy. And I suspect a few of you may love me not being that guy too. I never had a lot of enthusiasm for some of these things. So I'm grateful to Mother Pamela for picking that up. And finally, I have given the leadership of our yearly stewardship campaign, the campaign we're doing right now. I've given that over to our finance committee. In the past, I've led that, and I said, and they said, that's kind of crazy. Maybe the finance committee should do that. And so I'm grateful to Tom and the finance committee for stepping into that role. But you know how it is when you make changes? There are other changes that need to be made farther down the line. And for us, the church health team recommended, and the vestry ultimately agreed, first that we asked Patrina to give us 5 more hours a week. So she was at 25 hours. Now she's at 30 hours a week. That gives her enough time to handle putting together the email newsletter every week. And I just have to say, Patrina's wonderful. Are you here, Patrina? Am I embarrassing you in person? Hi, Patrina, all the way in the back. Hi. I don't know how she gets everything she gets done in the time that we have to give her, so I'm very grateful to her. And the other big thing that came out of this really was kind of killing two birds with one stone. It was recognizing that if I'm going to ask Mother Pamela to do a bunch more new things, well, we need to help her have a few other things to do in another area as well. And we also had a sense that we needed to step up when it came to ministry to children. And so we, on the recommendation of the church health team, were able to hire Rebecca to be our first children's minister probably, I think since Babette. It's been a long time, probably 15 years. So, yeah. So Rebecca's actually with the kids right now, so I'm grateful. She's at work. Mother Pamela will tell us a bit more about the things that Rebecca is doing, but it's just been really exciting to see her be able to begin that work and to have that extra time to give towards children's ministry at Epiphany. And I think we're already seeing some results from it, which is pretty amazing. And also, it was just an act of God that we found Rebecca. I cannot say, when I talk to priests and others in ministry, and I said, hey, I'm looking for a part-time children's minister that's good and is willing to come to our church on Sunday. They laughed at me. They're like, tell me when you find one, which makes sense. It's a very difficult ask, to ask somebody who you don't have a full-time job for, and you want to be spiritually mature, and you want them to change churches to work for you. And God sent Rebecca to Epiphany about a year ago, and so she was already here and willing to take on this role, and I'm just so grateful for that. Now I know, this sounds a little bit like inside baseball. We're doing this with the staff. This person's going over here. We're adding this thing. We're paying more money to do that. And I do want to just say, though, that even though that's the case, this is really important, and it does affect what happens at Epiphany in significant ways. And I also want to say, so far it does seem to be working well. I'm grateful to be free of some of the things I'm free of now. I'm grateful to different staff members who have picked those up. So I can do that. My hope is, and I think that gives me time to be a better priest. And so I'm grateful for that. But that was just the first part of what the church health team recommended and ultimately the vestry agreed to. The next part, well, it involves all of us and not just the office staff. And it also involves changes on Sunday morning, even changes to Sunday morning worship times. Do I have your attention? I hear that enthusiasm. It's very exciting to me. I feed on it. So this is what we're doing. Starting on January 4th and continuing through the 8 weeks of Epiphany, this is going to be a trial run. We are moving the early service from 8 to 8:15, and we're also moving its location from the sanctuary to the chapel. So that's the early service. And I want to say that is a massive ask for people who come to the early service. We are changing when and where people worship. That's a big deal. So if you're part of that service, I just want to honor you and say, I know we're asking a lot as we try this out. And yes, we will see how it goes. So that's what we're doing with that service. The later service will also change its start time from 10:15 to 10:30 a.m. If I have learned one thing at church, it's never make a service earlier, always make it later. It always works. That's great. So, but not too late. If you get into lunch, you get into trouble too. So this is a fairly minor shift. But you may ask, so why are we bothering to make it? What's coming out of this? Why are we daring to mess with all of our Sunday morning sleep schedules, even by 15 minutes? Well, I'm glad you asked, even if you didn't ask. I'm just saying you asked. You see, our goal is actually to open up a time between 9:30 and 10:15 every Sunday when absolutely everyone at Epiphany, including our many musicians who just have not been able to do this, certainly within my memory, where they can attend discipleship classes, or we can have groups like this. For instance, our annual meeting. Next year, imagine this, instead of asking you all to stay after church, we can have the annual meeting between 9:30 and 10:15 between the services. Nobody will be doing other things, and then we can go about our lives. So it opens up time between the services for discipleship, and for all congregation events when other folks don't have things that are scheduled on top of them. And it also creates a time when Epiphany kids can be gathered for special activities as well. So there's a lot that we think we're getting out of this. It will give us a way to do discipleship at Epiphany that absolutely everyone in the congregation has access to. That is something we haven't had before. Will this work? Will it be worth shifting both of our services and all of our musicians to different schedules? And shifting the 8 a.m. congregation to a different place? Well, right now, I don't know. But we are going to try it. That's the idea of going and looking at the season of Epiphany as a trial run. We will evaluate at the end of Epiphany for the coming year how that has worked, or if it has worked, and then decide whether we'll continue with the new pattern or shift back to the pattern that we're accustomed to. But that said, I am excited to try a change on Sunday morning at Epiphany. First of all, that isn't forced on us. I was actually thinking about this. We have made tons of changes about Sunday morning on Epiphany. We've worshiped at 5 different places in my time as your rector. We've done it at every time under the sun. We had our COVID schedule. We had parking issues. All of those things shifted our time. So we're actually choosing this one, guys. It's a little different, right? I'm excited to try a change that we're actually choosing for specific purposes that address a long-standing challenge, the challenge of making discipleship at Epiphany available to everyone, and to see what happens. You know, as they say, if you always do what you've always done, you will always get. I got different answers on that. What I was thinking of was what you've always got. Okay. So let's see. Let's see if there is something different for us to get out there. It's an experiment. We'll see what happens, but this is an experiment we're going to enter into in the season of Epiphany. This will kick off on January 4th at 9:30 a.m. by having actually an all-church gathering like this here in the fellowship hall, where we hear from Mother Pamela and our pilgrims to Turkey about their trip. So that'll be a chance for all of us to come together in this new way. January 4th, 9:30. We'll get to see pictures of Turkey and hear stories about that trip. So please plan to be part of that. Now, the next Sunday, January 11th, we'll be offering 3 adult education classes. There'll be a youth class, and there'll be activities for kids between 9:30 and 10:15 on Sunday morning. The adult classes will include one on the Trinity, taught by Richard Rash. I'll teach a course on Christian history, and Jim Boggs will teach a course on how we can be more effective evangelists. So look for signups for those coming up. That'll start January 11th, and it'll go through the season of Epiphany. Now, Jim Boggs' class on evangelism, well, that brings us to evangelism again. What are we doing about that? Well, first, yes, we continue to work on training all of us to share the good news of Jesus. That is one of our I never really want to call it a vision or a mission statement, but that statement about what we're about, equipping every member to share the good news of Jesus Christ. We continue to work on that. We went to a conference earlier this year. A few of us were able to go to that. And we're doing things like Jim's class. The other thing we're doing is we do continue to look for ways to dip our toes in the water of our neighborhoods through events like the annual pet blessing, when we actually go out into a neighborhood. And this is important. I would love to identify more events like that to do in 2026. That is, I want events where we go out from church and we meet people who do not go to church, who might be receptive to hearing about Jesus in a setting that is comfortable to them, not just a setting that's comfortable to us. If you have ideas, let's talk about that. I am very interested in things we might be able to do. But I will say this, if you are an idea person, find the part of you that's also a doing person when you come and talk about your idea with me, because I will ask for that. But also this year, we had the privilege as a church of helping not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 adults come to either a new or renewed faith in Jesus Christ. In all these cases, people came to Epiphany through their family members, and then they responded when they heard the gospel here. It was really neat. Those of you who were at our Easter Vigil saw that when we had 2 baptisms and 2 renewals of faith at that service. Let me just encourage you. If you have friends or family who are hungry for meaning and purpose and God, consider bringing them here. We are getting better at communicating the gospel as a church to those who have not heard it before. And the next opportunity to do this will actually be this month. It will be on December 28th at our Lessons and Carol service at Epiphany. We make a point to present the gospel in a simple way that we hope is accessible to people who have not heard it before as part of that service. So consider bringing someone with you on December 28th at 10:15, the last 10:15 service, who God might be preparing to hear the gospel. Okay. It has been a year of a lot at Epiphany. I hope you kind of picked that up. But before we move on, I do need to offer some thank yous. And first I need to thank Mother Pamela. Friends, you probably have no idea how much she does to make Epiphany work and to help me not go too crazy. She's my sounding board. She is someone that helps me as I help all of us. She jumps in and leads anything that needs leading without me asking. I sometimes say, "Are you sure you can do that?" And she's like, "Oh, it's okay." And it's like, "Really?" But it is. And so I'm so grateful to you, Pamela. Thank you. You've been my... Pamela's been the associate here for more than 10 years now, which is awesome. And then, of course, there's Patrina, who we've already embarrassed. Hi, Patrina. Jimmy, our incredibly gifted and able music director. I was just thinking of that this morning as we made this shift into Advent and how our music through Jimmy supported that so well. And also... And also Rebecca, who I've talked about. This is really just a fun and creative and effective staff team. You were very well served at this church. I just want to acknowledge that. I'm also deeply grateful to Beth Monroe, who with some real arm twisting on my part, agreed to be senior warden again. You may not know this, but Beth was the senior warden when we built out this facility. So she has done the things. And not only is she willing to be a senior warden this year for us, but I think she's willing to do it next year too, because she isn't off vestry. So that's really wonderful. Thank you, Beth. And this year I'm also incredibly grateful for Jeff Zimmerman, our junior warden. He did take on the task of leading that church health team, and that really did shape many of the changes that I've shared with you this morning. And he did that with great patience and focus, and if I may say so, a lot of long-suffering servanthood and a difficult rector to work with here and there. So well done, Jeff. And finally, let me briefly acknowledge again Deacon Sally Hoover and Amy Blancher. I think Sally and Amy may be here. Oh, hi, Amy. Sally. I see Bill. There's Sally. They served voluntarily for years here at Epiphany. I believe Sally served about 7 and Amy served more than 10. Was it 11? I don't remember. We had a conversation about this. A number. They retired a couple of weeks ago. And just thank you again for your service. And by the way, I didn't quite have it done when we thanked them a couple of weeks ago, but we are giving a gift to both of them. Sally is getting money for books as she pursues her education. And we are helping the Boncher family go on their next Disney cruise. So, it's been a while since I've run these numbers, but last time I checked, more than 100, somewhere between 100 and 120 people at our church. In other words, more people that are in this room have some volunteer role or another. This is a church that operates because of folks like them and also folks like you and what you give. We are so appreciative. That's what makes Epiphany work, is the time that you give it. So thank you. So friends, in my annual report last year, I said I hope to see some changes at Epiphany in the year ahead. I am not sure I imagined all the changes that we committed to when I said that, but I'm grateful for them. I think we are on a good course here that is aligned with what we're trying to do and be as a church. And also just simply this, friends, living things grow and change, right? And my goal continues to be to help Epiphany be a living part of the body of Christ, and that means growth and change. And by the way, Jeff kind of stole my thunder on this, but this year does mark our 40th anniversary as a church. I'm not sure what we'll do for that yet, but it does seem like potluck. There does seem to be a repressed demand for potluck around this place. So it could happen. If that's what you want, guys, we can have a potluck. But it does seem like some celebration is in order this year. We have seen God be faithful to this body of Christians through so much through these last 40 years. So I hope that you'll join me in the year ahead as we see what God brings us. I do ask, as we go into the Epiphany season and try out some new things, let's just see how it works together. Keep an open mind about it if it's challenging, and also at the same time, let's see what God might do through it. Thank you.